A giant humanoid Catman picked up my uncle's Bronco by the bumper into the air that when my uncle mashed the gas, he couldn't go anywhere. Welcome to Paranormal Christian. Let's tell stories. It was the mid-1960s. My aunt and my uncle were not yet married. They were dating. And one weekend, they were out on a double date. And so my uncle and his best friend at the time were in the front seat of the Bronco or some type of SUV that he had. My aunt and the other girlfriend, they are sitting in the back seat. My uncle decides to scare the girls by visiting a local place with a bit of a legend. So I live in St. Francis County, Missouri. My hometown that I grew up in is Flat River, Missouri. Now it's called Park Hills. And I currently live in Farmington, Missouri. In Farmington, Missouri, there are two locations that local residents say this is the location of the original Catman's Bridge. Catman is a local legend, a cryptozoological creature. Just like we hear about Sasquatch, we hear about Yeti, we hear about skunk ape, we hear about a chupacabra, we hear about Mothman. Recently, I told you about Birdman. And here, there are a handful of people that claim a Catman. Now, if you are familiar with the local area that I live in, I'm going to tell you right now the two locations. One location, which is where my uncle says is the actual location. My uncle has now passed away, but here is where he had his experience. If you know the Walmart store in Farmington, of course now there are houses all behind Walmart. That used to be a much more wooded area. And there is a bit of a small bridge. It's not much of a bridge there by the three-way stop behind Farmington Walmart. That is where many people say is the original location of the Catman Bridge where the Catman lived. The other is on Pimville Road around St. Joe State Park. And I have driven to that one to scare some people before, where we actually took some craft fur and made a mask. And I can tell you that story maybe here in a few minutes. And so on this particular evening in the 1960s, my uncle and his friend, they are going to drive to the Catman Bridge to scare the girls. And the legend goes like this. You park on the Catman Bridge, you shut off your engine, you shut off your lights, and out comes the Catman. Of course, my uncle didn't believe this. He just went to scare the girls. So they drive to the Catman Bridge. They park on the Catman Bridge. He shuts off his engine and waits. Nothing happens, but his headlights are still on. He shuts off the headlights and they wait. And not long after, my aunt and her friend begin to scream. They had turned and looked out the back glass, and looking at them through the back glass was something unlike they had ever seen in their life. It was humanoid, but it was not human. It was a large creature, 6 to 7 foot probably, standing upright with a face, a furry face that reminded you of something like a cat. My uncle and his friend, they glance back, not exactly sure about everything going on, but knowing that the girls are not playing around. Something is real, something is there, something is scaring them. My uncle starts the engine as fast as he can, and he puts the pedal to the floor and goes nowhere. And he realizes that the back end of his vehicle is not making contact with the ground. Whatever this is, looking in the back glass, has grabbed the bumper and lifted the vehicle off of the ground. Suddenly, I don't know if it was the noise of the vehicle, I don't know what it was, the vehicle drops to the ground, rubber meets the road, they lay tracks and go straight to the sheriff's department. They get to the sheriff's department, they park on the parking lot underneath a light, and they go in to tell the sheriff that something has happened. Now, my uncle does not go in claiming that there was a Catman, but just goes in saying, something has happened, we don't know what happened, we need somebody to go to this bridge, and explains the scare that they had in that the vehicle was off the ground. The sheriff comes out, sheriff or sheriff's deputy, and they look at the vehicle, and imprinted into the bumper on the back of the vehicle, there are two big places that have been crunched, that have been mashed in by some kind of giant device, hands, whatever, whatever it was, has gripped the back bumper and smashed those spots in as it lifted it off of the ground. And so the sheriff said, "Do you want to go back as well?" My uncle said, "Yeah, I'll go back." And so they drove out and found absolutely nothing at all. There are a handful of Catman stories like this in our area. If you are in the area, I need those Catman stories. This is something that has intrigued me for a very long time. I have no idea what my uncle experienced. I have no idea what my aunt actually saw, but I know that my aunt believed it when she told me the story. As she was telling it, it was very, very real to her. I would love to hear more. Now, the other location outside of St. Joe State Park on Pimville Road, there are many people who claim that that is where the Catman lived. And years ago, my sister, there were several young girls spending the night at her house with my niece. They were having a slumber party. They were going to tell some stories and this and that. My sister called me and she said, "Hey," she said, "I'm going to drive them out to the Catman Bridge to scare them." And so my friends and I, we bought some craft fur at Walmart, and we cut out a simple mask and put it on, and we hid under that bridge. We waited for her car to stop, and when we heard her engine shut off, out we came and up to the window and scared those girls. And I felt really bad. One of them got so scared she got sick and had to go home and miss the party. And so sorry about that, Sarah. Didn't mean to scare you so bad. So that is the story of the Catman and the Catman Bridge and the two possible locations in our area. We want to hear your stories. And so if you would right now, would you please subscribe or follow us on whichever platform you're watching? We are on Instagram, we are on TikTok, we are on YouTube, and we are on Facebook. I also want to encourage you to visit us at paranormalchristian.com. Buy a hoodie, buy a coffee mug, buy a trucker cap, and send us your stories. You can comment your stories here, or you can send them through the contact form on the website. You can message us. We want to hear from you. And so keep the stories coming, and join us again on Paranormal Christian, and keep them PC.